Hi, fourth graders. It's Mr. Holt. Miss you guys. Wish we were in our classroom doing some math learning, but we're not. But we can still do math learning. I'm right here. Hopefully you're right there. So it works. We're going to do our last lesson from our fractions unit. We were really close before the school closures. We were really close to being done with that fractions unit. We still need to get to decimals, angles, a couple things we've talked about before. But we're almost done with fractions. Today, we're going to be multiplying mixed numbers. So, for instance, if we had a mixed number with 3.5, and we're going to be multiplying that by 2 3/4. Multiplying mixed numbers. We haven't done this before. This is brand new learning for us. We've added and subtracted mixed numbers. So if we were adding these, we would typically add 3 wholes plus 2 more wholes, and then we have 5 wholes. Then we would need to add our fractional parts, our half and our 3/4. That wouldn't work since they don't have the same denominator, but we know what to do there. We would add that way. Multiplication does not work the same. Multiplication is a distributive property. So if I wanted to try to do it that way, if I wanted to do 3 times 2 is 6, then half times 3/4, well, that doesn't even, we learned the other day, multiply straight across the top, so we'd have 3, 2 times 4 is 8, so that'd be 3/8, but then I would still need 3/4 times our 3 wholes. I would have to distribute it. It'd have to be almost like expanded form. So I could do it that way, but I would end up adding 4 different numbers together over here, and it would be really easy to get lost. It just doesn't work that way. It's not the way that we do it. I lost my eraser. To multiply mixed numbers, what we're going to do, and it's why we had been working to convert mixed numbers to improper fractions already, is we're just going to make them improper fractions and then multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and then if we need to go back to, and of course we would go back to a mixed number. So let's do that. 3.5, to make that into an improper fraction, we know we need our denominator times our whole number. Remember, we're making that triangle. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 more is 7. It was always over 2. 7/2 times 2 3/4 is our mixed number. We need to make that an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 more is 11. It was always over 4. 11/4. Now, one of the videos down further in our Google Classroom stream was a video about how to multiply fractions. Typically, when we were adding and subtracting fractions, they had to have the same denominator, so sometimes we had to find an equivalent fraction so that it would work out. With multiplying fractions, we can multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. 7 times 11 is 77. 2 times 4 is 8. So 3.5 times 2 3/4, or rather 7/2 times 11/4, haven't changed the value, just made them improper fractions, is 77/8. Now, if the health officials told us we could all get back together and we were going to have a little bit of a get-together party, and one of you showed up and said, hey everybody, I brought 77/8 pizzas for us to share, we would all look at you kind of funny. That's a weird way to tell us how much pizza you actually have. It's correct, we've done the math correctly. 3/2 times 2 3/4 is 77/8, but that's a really weird way to share that information. But we know how to make that a mixed number. 77/8 can be thought of as 77 divided by 8. Just trying to get as close as I can. Remember, sometimes we're going to have a remainder when it comes to division. 77 divided by 8. I know that 9 times 8 is 72. So that's going to be as close as we can get as 9, which takes us up to 9 times 8 is 72. We've almost used up our 77, but we've only used up 72, so there's still 5 remaining, and it was always out of 8s. 3/2 times 2 3/4 is a total of 9 5/8. Now, if we got to have that party that we talked about, and you showed up and you said, hey, I brought 9 5/8 pizzas, I used to have 10, but I ate 3 out of the 8 pieces, so now I have 9 5/8 left for us to all share. That makes a lot more sense. I can picture 9 and a little bit more than a half pizza remaining, even though you ate a couple slices. So that's multiplying mixed numbers. We convert them into improper fractions, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and we get an improper fraction. It's correct, but that's not a great way to represent that information. If we converted it back to a mixed number, makes a lot more sense for showing that information. We'll do one more together, and then I want you guys to practice. On paper would be great. Khan Academy you can find multiplying mixed numbers, and on Prodigy, if I'm able to, I will go make this be the skill that you'll see when you log into Prodigy. Let's do one more. I had actually done another one here a moment ago, but I used some numbers that didn't seem big. I think I did 4 2/3 multiplied by 5 2/5 or something like that. Ended up being a really large improper fraction, which was fine, but then I had to use long division with a 2-digit divisor, which we've seen a little bit. Typically our division has a 1-digit divisor, so it just got it was big. So when you go to practice this same skill, I would keep your mixed numbers to 1s, 2s, 3s, and whatever fractional part you want to throw behind it. But the bigger mixed numbers you start using, of course, the numbers are just going to be bigger. So we'll do one more. I'm going to use smaller numbers this time, and it'll just be a little bit easier for us. But this is the kinds of mixed numbers that by the end of 4th grade that we should be able to multiply. So what about 1 3/4 multiplied by 3 2/5? Mixed number multiplied by another mixed number. As we talked about earlier, trying to distribute it out all the way. 1 times 3, then 1 times 2/5, but then 3/4 times 3, and then 3/4 times 2/5. Kind of turns into that expanded form. It's a distributive property. Gets pretty messy. It would work theoretically, but we'd have to set up all sorts of other math problems off to the side. It just makes more sense to convert into improper fractions and multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. 1 3/4 times 3 2/5. We need to make it an improper fraction. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 more is 7, making my triangle. That was always out of 4. 7/4, 1 3/4. 3 2/5, making my triangle. 15 plus 2 more is 17, over 5. Still multiplying. Straight across the top, 7 times 17. It's going to be 119, I believe, but we can do, we can set up the multiplication off to the side. 17 times 7, 49. 119, I was correct. 119 over 4 times 5 is 20. 119 20ths. We've found the correct improper fraction, but that's kind of a weird way to represent that information. If you told me I had 119 20ths pizzas that you brought to the get together, it's kind of a weird way to say so. Really, how many times is 20 going to go into 119, or rather 119 divided by 20? 20 is going to go in 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. 120 would be too big, so it's going to go in 5 whole times. That took us up to 100, so there's 19 still sitting up here over 20. We almost have 6 whole pizzas when we had 1 3/4 times 3 2/5. We almost end up with 6 whole pizzas, but we had 5 19 20ths. Good to see you guys on the Google Classroom. Hopefully get to see you sooner than later in our actual classroom. Please practice this last fractions lesson, multiplying mixed numbers. Tomorrow, or probably Friday, one of the next 2 days, I'll put together a little bit of a check-in to see how you're feeling, kind of going backwards a little bit within our fractions. Remember, this is how we add fractions, and then kind of ask you to ask yourself, how am I feeling about that? Here's subtracting fractions, how do you feel about that? Here's converting mixed numbers to improper fractions, how do you feel about that? So kind of a review, because that was the last lesson within our fractions unit. I miss you guys. See you soon. Adios.